So I'm really delighted to introduce you to Alex Hillis, who you'll see on the screen with the beard and the name tag. Alex joined us on August the 1st as a minister to families or family minister. And I want to say a couple words about that, a couple words about Alex, and then spread to him. So a lot of churches, especially a long time ago, decided we would have a children's minister and a youth minister. And a lot of that modeling was, hey, look, kids don't want to be in the service, so let's pull them out of the service. And teenagers need to be with each other, not with parents. So youth group was about like pulling kids away from their family to do something that was teen relevant. Of course, what's wrapped up in that is saying what adults do is not relevant. So well, all of the research is like against these things that we've done for a long time. And what we have now is family ministry, which includes, of course, children. It includes youth. It includes their parents, right? Because the goal is not to form kids away from their parents, but to form families together. It also includes just families, period, right? So this is new, uncharted ground. A lot of us don't have this like type the way we grew up. But we're going forth boldly. So Alex is here to do that. Alex comes to us most recently from St. Mark's in Bel Air. Many of you know of the place. They have a very large parish school, about 500 students. So just compare that to our school has about 81 right now, 81 to 500. It's a lovely place, and because it has so many families, right, it's a great incubator for what family ministry looks like. So Alex is coming to us from there. Another really fun thing about Alex is that his wife, Megan, does family ministry at St. Christopher in League City. So family ministry in the Clear Lake area is literally in the family. And this is a great opportunity for us at St. Thomas to grow Clear Lake Episcopal family ministry that is not boundaried by one congregation or another, but really designed to serve the whole area. So these are ways we're hoping to expand out. That's my take on it. And now Alex, I think, is prepared to tell you a little bit about his story and his goals and vision, and of course to have some Q&A time. So Alex, you're on.
Yeah, so sorry, I was on two screens there. First of all, I was hearing what Mike was saying, but it was cutting in and out on my work computer. So I switched over to my phone so I could have a better connection and not lose you guys. But Mike hit on a lot of good stuff about me. I am what you would call a cradle Episcopalian, born and raised in the Episcopal Church. So I'm very familiar with our Episcopal ways. I journeyed around for a little bit to find my place, and then in college I found my way back to the Episcopal Church because I just found that it was more my people and my style. And then I jumped in. For those of you who know about Camp Allen, I jumped into Camp Allen summer camp and did senior staff there with the youth and children there, and found that I really loved the ministry I was doing, and decided I didn't want to stop just throughout the summer, but I wanted to continue throughout the year. And that's how I found my way to St. Mark's at the time I started as the assistant youth minister, moved my way into the youth minister role there, and spent 7 years doing ministry there, and learned a lot of stuff. I learned also that I do enjoy children's ministry. I have to admit, at first, kids were a little scary. I always found it was easier to have a conversation with a teenager who could like respond and we could dialogue about things. And it was much harder to have a conversation with little Johnny about, well, how was your day, kid? But I learned that I was actually pretty good at it, and I got better at it. And I really enjoyed my time at St. Mark's, but it was time for me to go and grow my ministry and help others to grow as well. And on my journey and finding where I was going to go to next, I found St. Thomas, and I have found that I really loved the community and really loved the people and the goals and the dreams that are here in place and where we want to go. And I wanted to be a part of that. So I joined the team. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to really start this ministry together and this and be a part of this community. when it comes to me, I'm a very I'm a very I guess the best way to describe it, I'm a millennial. We are in love with Harry Potter. So I'm a Hufflepuff, which is probably the best way to describe me. I'm loyal to a T, and I really am all about joy and keeping us together as a community. And so I am. So I'm also a peace, not war kind of guy. I'm not I'm not big on confrontation. So duly noted, if you need to have confrontation with me, just prepare me. Just be like, hey, we're gonna have a confrontation right now. Like, okay, I'm ready. Just gotta prepare me. But I'm excited to do this ministry with you all. I love to partner in ministry. At my time at St. Mark's, that was always my goal, was to be a true partner in ministry with the parishioners. I would tell my parents of my youth every single time at the beginning of school year, we would do a parent meeting, and we would have the conversation that in ministry, it truly is a partnership. Whether it's children, youth, or even your own personal growth. What I do as the minister really doesn't compare to what you all do at home and do in your personal lives. And so what I tell my parents, I am a resource and a tool to be used for your growth in your faith, but I shouldn't be the only thing relied on in the growth. And so reminding my parents of the youth that we were partners in that ministry, and we were doing that together. And so I'm excited to partner with you all in the different ministries of St. Thomas. When it comes to my visions and my goals, it was quite funny. I thought about this, and I actually have come to the conclusion that it's not just my visions and my goals that I want to see happen. It's our visions and our goals that I want to see come to reality and make happen. So I'm actually right now doing a lot of listening on what the needs and the desires are for St. Thomas. I have had experiences with other churches and ministers, and even myself have done it before, where a new minister comes in and just fires on all cylinders on, we're doing this program, we're gonna do this program, we're gonna put all this stuff together. And then within the year, those programs are no longer around, and everyone's kind of burnt out about it. So instead of going that route, we're gonna, especially because we have this Delta variant, and we're continuing to be cautious and be careful for our health. It's a good time, I think, for us to take things slow and to really learn and talk to one another about what it is we want to happen at St. Thomas. And so if I'm being real, if you were to really ask me, okay, what would I love to see? I'd love to see children's programs grow here. I'd love to see a group grow here. Eventually, at some point, a young adult group, potentially. And within those ministries, different things happening. Youth groups, they're going on mission trips, and we're going on retreats, and children's, we're having family nights, and we're having opportunities for parents to get together and talk to one another, and also all at the same time scripture together and studying that, but also being in community with one another. So when it comes down to my goals and my dreams, those are kind of the things like I wish for St. Thomas, but at the end of the day, it's going to be our goals and our dreams together that we make reality. So I'm happy to be here and partner with you all. I have a new office. It's super cool and shiny and nice, and it's the nicest one I've ever had. So if you ever just want to come talk to me, I'm always here. I'm here Mondays through Thursdays. I'll also be here on Sundays, so you can come find me, and I'll also be at church on Sunday mornings, usually at the 10:30. So if you want to find me there, also you can reach me by email. And I'm happy to take any questions right now and just talk with you all. Happy. Yes, go ahead.
Well, Alex, I'm really very glad to have this opportunity to meet you this morning, and your goals and approach to us, the family goal, I think, is just so commendable. It's I think we're very fortunate to have you, and I wish you the very best. And when I see you today, I'm going to say an extra hi.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely an extra hi. Oh yeah, I'm very excited, and I just had the thought that Mike was talking about. My wife is the a family minister at St. Chris in League City, so literally about 10-15 minutes from here. So we're really excited to do partnerships with them as well, and to grow our community throughout the Clear Lake area. And I also do have a daughter. I forgot to mention this. I don't know how. She's the cutest thing in the world. I have a daughter named Evelyn, and she is going to be 2 in October. And she is a redhead, just like our Emery, who is Mike's daughter. So we are assembling an army of redheads over here at St. Thomas. So we're be prepared, world. I'm happy to answer any other questions or comments or thoughts.
Alex, happy to have you here. How do you become a family minister?
Yeah, that's a good question. How do I get here? How did I get here? It's a long journey through a lot of different ways of looking at it. Personally, how I became a family minister is I started again in Camp Allen as a senior staffer, realizing that I had a call for ministry, and then diving further into that ministry as a youth minister, because I realized I had a really passion for the youth and the young teenagers of the world, and doing that ministry, and then diving even further, realizing I had a passion for the children as well, and realizing I could do both, and having that opportunity here at St. Thomas to grow in family ministry. Now, how the family ministry position actually came around, I think kind of church-wide in that general church conversation. So youth ministers and children's ministers are still a thing, but they're becoming less and less, what's the word? There at churches, especially in this. So what you may find is in non-denominational churches and the big Baptist churches, especially here in the Houston area, you would find not only a youth minister and a children's minister, but you would find a team of youth ministers and children's ministers. Some Episcopal churches who do have that are churches such as St. Martin's and St. John the Divine. You'll find that. But as you get into the smaller communities within our Episcopal diocese and our smaller churches, which is not a bad, smaller is not bad, smaller is just great. But you'll find that churches are actually moving towards family ministers and ministry. It's easier to hire someone who has one goal and one set of mind for your entire family ministries, to keep that focus, and keep that longevity as well. The position of youth minister and children's minister, the research shows that the average life of those are about 3 years in a congregation, which sounds like a lot, but it's actually, once you get down to the brass tacks, it's not really all that long. So the idea that a family minister's church could last longer, and ideally does last longer, with the focus of it all. And so that, I guess that was 2 ways to answer the question, because there was my personal way to get there, my personal being a family minister. But there's also the way that I think the church is kind of looking at family ministry, and how the Episcopal Church is growing in a way different than what we used to be, when we have one youth minister and one children's minister, and someone for each position. So I hope that answers the question.
Do you have an educational background in education or in?
Oh, so yeah, I don't have I did not get a degree in education. I do have a degree from the University of Houston. I got my degree in communications. I did for a little while. I don't know if this is last May. I did for a little while go to Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia, and studied youth ministry. So I do have background in some education, but I finished my degree in communications. So I don't have a degree in education, but I have an education in a lot of ministry work that I did. So yes.
Alex,
Yes, ma'am.
you know, things are changing so much with our youth, and even the way that even the church in most areas is in crisis. And I'm thinking that you really have a challenge set out before you, excuse me, and because, excuse me, people, well, I guess I'm not supposed to say this, so I'll come back later. I'm sorry.
No, you're okay. You can whatever you
Well,
want.
the thing is this, we were raised, those of us present, and maybe you too, were raised on dogma and doctrine and things of that sort, the rules. But, there's people are not buying into that anymore. They're really looking for spirituality. They're looking for relationship with God. But I don't know that many. I don't know. Some know how to foster that and to maintain that relationship with God, and then others are so distracted by the things of the world that they don't even. God is somebody out there. So, when I was a kid, I'm former Roman Catholic, and we had the Baltimore Catechism that we had to memorize. And but now kids today, I don't know they're really going to go for that kind of thing. So the thing is this, I guess what I'm looking at here is that you've got a different set of teenagers than all of us have been accustomed to. And they are much more independent in their thinking and so forth. So what kind of challenges do you see in helping them find a relationship with God that they can stay faithful to?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and it is a challenge. It's a very much a challenge, and it's not just a challenge here at St. Thomas. It's a challenge that in my time of youth ministry, I found is a universal church kind of thing. We're finding it very challenging to really connect with the ever changing youth and children, the way that they're learning, the way that they engage with their relationship with God. And so, yes, I agree. There is very much a challenge set in front of us. The way that I have been going about it, and the way that I hope we continue to go about it, is we have to approach how we do ministry differently. We are especially as aliens, we are creatures of habit. We like the way we do things, and we don't like to mess with it. Which works for us. But as children and young people, they like to change and adapt and like new things. And so I think when we think about growing the faith of our young ones, we have to think about a different approach and how we go about it. What you'll find is that what I have found is that a lot of our high schoolers specifically in the world are a lot more they are a lot more in tune with the world than I think I have ever seen young people be, whether that is for a cause, for politics. We are seeing them join movements. And so we are seeing the young people do things that I have never seen before, or even my generation has done. So we are challenged to really meet these kids where they're at in their worlds, and to really I think approach them with new ideas and different ways to engage with the not just with the service that we have, which is beautiful, but with our doctrine of belief as Episcopalians, because when it comes down to it, that I think as Episcopalians is where we really shine, is our beliefs and how we believe them. And I think that and I think that's one of the things that the young people will eventually really I like to tell them, they're going to dig it. You guys are really going to dig what we're giving you, what we're feeding you, because it's what is important. It's the gospel. And so I think the answer is hard, right? Because I wish I had an answer that was like, yeah, let's do this and it's going to be great. I don't have that exact defined answer, but I can say that I think if we just approach them with a heart of change and a willingness to do something different for them, to help them engage in new ways, I think that will really start to help. Because like you said, Sunday school used to be like, the thing. We used to have it. Everyone was there. You did all the stuff. You memorized all the verses, and you did all the. Even when I was in Sunday school, is how it was. And it's just, our world is changing. We have now we have sports on Sundays where like kids are doing soccer games on Sunday morning at 8 a.m. and I'm confused because I'm like, wait, what? Isn't Sundays for that's God's day? You don't get to do soccer on that day. So we it's very true. The challenges are there, not only physically, but, spiritually with where they're at and how they're feeling. So I think we have to be willing to meet them where they're at and adjust and approach them differently than I think we've ever done. And I know that is, as Episcopalians, that's not our easiest thing to do, because we have our ways and the ways we like to do them. But I think it's something we can do. And I think it's something here at St. Thomas, we really have an opportunity to do. Which is what a part of the draw of why I really liked what I really liked the idea of coming here, and my time of interviewing at St. Thomas and getting to know you all. Something Mike kind of reiterated and others did through our conversations was the why not strategy. Should we do this? Well, why not? Why not try it? And so that openness and willingness to do the different stuff.
Well, Alex, one thing I would like to emphasize is that the most important thing of all is to help them get to know God, to develop a living, conscious relationship with God, because we are in all kinds of trouble now, because basically humanity has turned away from God, especially us Americans. We're all involved. We're idol worshipers now, money, sex, comfort, success, fame, and all these other things here. And the thing is this, if you go back to the Old Testament and you see that when people had their good times with God, they were faithful, and then they began to wander, and then they got into idolatry, and then they got into hell, so to speak. Okay, as I see it, from my perspective, we're doing the same thing. We have done the same thing. So to get our people back together, we have to put God back in the equation. Personal, loving, caring, real. So all, and of course that is, I don't know how you do that with all the complexity, but to me that seems to be the bottom line.
Yeah. Yep.
Alex, I was just going to say that Meg is right, but you have to reach people where they are. And teens are so hooked into social media that I think your communications background is actually a big plus.
Yeah.
Because you can reach them that way and do it. And that is one of the wonderful things about the Episcopal religion, is that we believe in the three-legged stool, that you have tradition, you have the Bible, you have reason, that God gave us reason. And I think that St. Thomas also has a lot of outreach programs. And I think kids get very involved in that if there's a cause that they can believe in.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. I think we can all agree. I think kind of the messaging is like, the way we love, I think is important, the way we show love to one another. And I think it comes down to relationships too. I think a big dynamic of their growth is relationships, and how that plays into their growing of their faith. And so I agree with all those things that were said. And I think there is a way that we can really show them God's love, which I think is what's hugely important. And it's not through the programs, and it's not through the VBSs and the mission trips and the youth groups, and that those physical things will be shown, but how we interact with them and how we have conversations with them and how we show them love. What I have found is that youth and children, they reflect love. They reflect everything that they see. They truly, at those early stages, are just a reflection of what they're seeing. And so how we show them God's love and how we explain to them God's love is truly, I think, what's gonna make a difference in their lives. And I think, to your point, Margaret, really show them who God is and his love for us. And so I think that's great.
Alex, what are your thoughts on contemporary services with relation to encouraging the youth to participate and things like that?
Yes. So contemporary services, it's I personally, I come from my church back in Calvary Episcopal. I came from Calvary, which is my home church, where I was born and raised. And we have an interesting service where we have like a combined contemporary service. So we have a band we called the Pogs, and we had a choir there as well. And they took turns singing songs. So personally, I fell in love with the contemporary music. I was like, down with that. That's awesome. I think it's interesting because I think our young people are connecting with the contemporary style. What I have found is that the young people are connecting with just more of the modern singing and the modern, guitar and band, but they're disconnecting with what's being said at certain services and non-denominational churches that have that style. The way I kind of like to look at contemporary services is not that it's not that it's a bad thing. I don't like to look at it as if it's like it's the enemy, but I actually like to look at it as it can be a tool that can be used for our that can be used to help us, that can be used to help connect us to younger people who would engage with that kind of singing or that kind of style as well. Just personally knowing that my own experience on Sunday mornings in the Episcopal Church, I longed for when I went to church. It was exciting for me to have that ability to connect with that music. And personally, I have a guitar and I love singing. And so it's just kind of my passion. So I know that, and not every youth is like that, but I think it gives more of a place for them to engage in another thing within the service. So not that we need our own contemporary service, but again, trying to approach things differently. Maybe we find a way to have a youth service or maybe a youth band that plays on Sunday mornings every once in a while. But finding a way to use it as a tool rather than something that's like, oh, that's their kind of thing. Like trying to embrace a lot of different things. So I'm okay with contemporary music. I quite enjoy it. But I also think there's a way to utilize it within our services that can be meshed and partnered together, and it doesn't necessarily have to be called contemporary, but just because the choir and the organ, it's contemporary too. It was contemporary at its time. So just trying to find a way to partner those two different styles of worship.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Alex?
Yes.
How are you going to incorporate children that have special needs into your program?
Yeah, so that is something that is again one of those challenges where I'm learning to meet that challenge. We're going to be very open for all needs that our children have. I have experienced in my time a couple of youth who have had these kind of things happen. I had one who had a pacemaker, and we had to adjust with him having a service dog. I've had OCD, ADHD. I've had different experience with different all different kind of backgrounds. So we are going to be very open and very welcoming to all, and to adjust and not just adjust, but to prepare for any and all needs that may arise. Whether that be taking different courses for myself to prepare for those. I've already taken a mental health course. I forget what it's called a first aid mental aid, kind of just to make me aware of all this that's in the world and how to take some basics on those different things. but specifically if there are other needs to fit those as they come. And really honestly to stay open with everyone and to find understanding and show them love just as I would with any other child or youth. So I hope that answered the question.
Darlene, you're ready.
Yes, I wanted to echo Alex's and really applaud your approach to loving the kiddos. And for me, it's not so much the activity as it is the interaction with each child or adolescent in the activity, meeting their basic needs, being recognized, being listened to, respected, and valued. And I feel like you have those qualities of being able to interact personally with the kids, whatever the programs are that we try or that we set up for them. So I'm excited about your being here. I think you're going to be a wonderful advocate for our kids.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's it. I think relationship building is really is where the growth comes. It's hard because you want to play the numbers game, right? You'd love to see, like, the dream is like 30 kids in your youth group and you're like, oh my gosh, that would be amazing. But at the end of the day, especially as we start this process, the 1 or 2 kids who might be coming every Sunday to a youth group event, that's great. We build on that. We build the relationships from there, and we let God do the rest. It's very interesting in ministry because when you're working I call them a big boy job. When you're working a real job, you have numbers and you have identifiers of way to identify success. And here my company is doing this and this well. But in ministry and church, you don't really have that denominator of like, this is not. You do have ways, little things like, hey, we've got a nice cool office. We're on the up and up, we got good things going on. So you do have ways, but it's harder because a lot of the ways that we don't. It's a lot of, well, hey, we have a really good relationship with all of our people, and that's a success right there for all those who come. So yeah, I think it's a lot of focus on showing that through showing them, youth, children, the love of God, and having that there for them to reflect that back to the world through our relationships.
Julia's got a great question in the chat, and before we take it, I just want to offer to everybody on the screen, right, that one of the things we're trying to do that is commensurate with all the research that's been done in the last 20 years. There's this big company called Youth Specialties, and it was formed by this guy called Mike Yaconelli, who's like the guru of youth ministry. And at the end of his career, he said, we did it wrong. What we did is we took youth away from their church and from their family, and we had youth groups, and we didn't connect them to anybody in the church. And so what we did is we told our kids, the church we were going to do contemporary stuff instead of connecting you with a church that will be there as you continue to age, right? And so what you're seeing in church is our acolytes are sometimes now holding the chalice, which is a way of saying you can belong to church right now, and you can function right now. And even at our school, I think actually we're the only school in the Diocese of Texas where our kids help serve Eucharist to one another. And we just don't give them the stuff. We train them and we license them. Like, they can tell you what transubstantiation is and how that's, parallel and different from real presence and symbolism. And if you've ever watched our kids hold that cup, they'll literally get down on their knees so that people can see in there when they're dipping and drinking. And no adult's going to do that. I mean, it's really amazing, right? And so the memory is, I served my church when I was young, and I can continue to do that as I grow up. I don't have to wait to serve. So that's like the what we're trying to vision and live into, right? Is that we don't just have limbs who are adults and they do that job. We have acolytes who are children and adults, and they serve together and they get to know one another. And I didn't grow up doing Journey to Adulthood. Just curious, did anybody on the screen do Journey to Adulthood in the Episcopal Church? J2A? No. And Alex and I are working on this as a possibility. You know, we've got wonderful human beings at this church. It would be a shame for our children and youth not to be mentored by these human beings. It would be a shame. I don't just mean professionally. I mean, we have faithful people here, right? Who are poised to mentor our kids and our families and our parents, right? Being a parent is really hard. And I'm looking at people on the screen who have a lot of wisdom. What my church didn't do is connect me with those people. They gave me precepts. They didn't give me relationships. This is what family ministry looks like. It's like, not just do we have people tell you how to parent, how do we have a support system that says, hey, given what's going on, what was successful? What was helpful? How did I build my children up in service and faith and wisdom? So that's going on. Now, Julia has a question for Alex that said, how can we help get these things started? And Alex, that's just for you.
Yeah, no. And just to quickly hit on what Mike said, we're trying to, like the youth group thing, we really want the youth to be involved. And this is a passion of mine too, to be involved with the whole church. And that starts on Sunday mornings too. So acolyting is a great way to do it. Again, we're just going to try and find different ways to have everyone engage. And to that extent of how you can help and how we get things started, really at this phase right now, it's let's get together and talk ideas and get the things going. But once we really want to start these programs started, and once we really want to start physically putting them in place and creating the foundation, it's about giving your talents and giving your energy and any way that is. You know, I'll be honest, I'm going to say right now, a lot of what will be helpful to me is if you are physically here and as an adult resource, as a leader of different things, that's going to be hugely helpful for me in my ministry to have you, anyone, be a leader within each different ministry. That is the honest.
Sign me up, Alex.
Yes, awesome, perfect. See, I'm gonna start writing down names. So if you raise your hand right now, be fair warned. I'm gonna write your name down and come find you. That is, and what I have found in ministry and programs that are successful is that is the really biggest drive. Is those programs and these ministries that are truly successful have the backing and have the leadership of not just a minister who is hired, but of the people in the community. And so that will, I think, be the biggest part when we're getting these things up and running. Having that leadership. So for example, the first thing we have right now is the children's chapel. So just saying, hey, can I come and see what that's like and figure out how that's done? It's actually very easy. And then after that, saying, hey, I'd love to sign up to be a part of that and to lead that. And again, the more people we have volunteer to lead things, honestly, the less I have to ask of you as volunteers. The more people we have wanting to teach on Sunday mornings, you only have to teach once a month rather than me going, hey, we teach twice a month. So really that's where a lot of that work will come in. But granted, I know that there are some people who are not, some people, I've really met a lot of people who are like, I don't really like hanging out with kids or youth or really any of that. Can I do something else? And yes, the answer is yes. There's always a lot to be done. And if your talents are more about like, I love to organize things and records and stuff, that's great. We can help. We can have you help with that. There's lots of different ways to help. Just have a conversation with me and we'll figure out where we can fit you in and in that work. And to that extent, I think I saw in the chat another question, which was, how might empty nesters be of use for this? And that's interesting because empty nesters are like the people we need help the most from, because like you guys have gone through it. Like I have found that like when my empty nesters get to the end, they're like, okay, we're done. We're never going to help again. And I'm like, no way, but you know what you're doing. You're the one who's been through it. Like, and what I have found to that extent is our quote unquote empty nesters, when they do help and when I've had them be volunteers, particularly in youth group, they are usually the superstars resources that I usually have, because they know, they get it. The kids connect with them because they kind of like understand there's that parent dynamic, that they have that experience. And I've seen some of our most successful youth adult resources be people who have walked their child through their whole faith walk and then just decided to continue to help the other kids of the community. So there's a role for everyone, no matter age, no matter if I have a family, don't have a family, if there's a role that can be played by anyone and everyone. So a good way to do it is just to start a conversation with me and go, hey, how can I help? And we'll find a way to do it. And we'll find what your strengths are and how you can help us push the ministries forward of St. Thomas.
Another great way we can all contribute is to say, here's what my family really could have used, or here's what my family continues to need, so that instead of operating a program that's traditional, we can offer a program that's meaningful.
Yes.
And I don't mind being a little bit vulnerable and saying, without naming names, that on the one hand, there's what we want for our kids, right? And on the other hand, there is what we need as parents. And here's the vulnerability thing, right? Once upon a time, I was having trouble with my son, and some of you know my story on that. And it was really hard. And somebody came and said, oh, I was having trouble too. My son was getting a C in a class, and of course, he turned it around and got an A. And I left that conversation feeling like trash, because I would have been so happy for a C. So what we didn't do, right? We didn't connect. And I don't know that parents need parenting advice. I think we need somebody to listen to us in vulnerability, who can say, like, my struggles weren't yours, but we've got our struggles and I'm here with you. Maybe we don't need a parenting class. Maybe we need a parenting support group, where instead of like having to keep that stuff to ourselves, lest we be judged as bad parents, because that's the number one fear, right? Kids acting out, people are going to judge us. And that's true. And it shouldn't be true here. Yeah, should not be true here. This should be a place where we're absolutely safe saying, I don't need you to fix me. I just would like you to listen. This is really hard. And we've got people on the screen who can hold that anxiety and difficulty. I know that. And you may say, like, hey, I don't want to be involved in children's ministry. Could you create space for a parent to listen without trying to fix them? Yes. I think most of you could do that. I see Darlene raised her hand and she said yes. I also happen to know there's people on the screen, because Darlene just raised her hand, who know something about alternative ways of doing things. Like Darlene is extremely well versed in Native American ways of raising children, which are very, very different, quite honestly, from like what we often settle for. They tend to be like very nonviolent and affirmative and curious. And I didn't grow up with any of that. And it doesn't mean I need to cut and paste it. I just don't even know what I don't know. And so this is an opportunity not just to form our kids, but to form their parents and to form our community. You know, the school theme for the year is it takes a village, and it does. And I get to see firsthand, because my kid spends more time awake in this building than she does at home, right? I get to see the village operate on her. I'm looking at 3 people on the screen right now who are like her second tier of grandparents. She doesn't even know how fortunate she is to have that, but I do, because I didn't get that. Y'all are poised to do that, even if you don't do it in programming. Knowing our kids' names and knowing what they're interested in and saying, hey, I thought of you and I got you this coloring page to do while you're in church. I can't even tell you what difference that makes. You know how comfortable Emery is crawling around the Lord's table. I was never allowed to do that. Not only is she allowed to do it, but y'all appreciate the girl. Church is going to be a safe place for her whole life, because you've made it a safe place. That's a gift that we get to give in family ministry. And all of you are prepared to give that gift, whether with direct time or just noticing. Susan.
I went to church with my daughter, and it was a Catholic church in a college town. And they had, you would come into like the narthex, but then there would be a room off to the side called the crying room.
Yes.
And so if children started, even if it was happy chatter, the parents would get up, leave the church, and go into the crying room. And I love the fact that our children are welcome wherever they are in their life and their process and the day. They are welcome in our church. I love that.
Yes.
I think we might need a crying room, but I think the crying room is for people who aren't used to hearing children, so they can go in there and cry.
Yeah.
And that would be a good use of the room, right?
I personally love it too. And I say this just jokingly because I love that we let the kiddos yell and scream, but I have to take my daughter out sometimes because if I didn't, man, that girl would talk the entire time. So there are times where I have to take her out and go, hey, just for this part, let's just shh. And she's like, oh, okay.
It's so interesting because Meg was talking about earlier, like, hey, we were grown up with doctrines that like our kids don't necessarily want anymore. Well, I think we just switched for more life-giving doctrines, like church should be a place of life.
Yeah.
And distracting the preacher is way less important than people being present in the building and alive, right? Now we understand church is not a place where adults are going to run around with fireworks and screaming. Like we get that, right? On the same token, right? Our kids are alive and signs of life are okay, right? And threatening our kids that they better be quiet in church, and there's a gentle way to do that, right? But I grew up with the threat. I mean, I was terrified to make noise in church, and that informed my theology, right? I mean, God was scary.
Mm-hmm.
You better be quiet. Instead of like, hey, we all want to hear, including you, right? And so there's a way we can do this that doesn't take away from everybody else hearing. I mean, it's not an either or. We don't have to have chaos to include people.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And I would carry my daughter out sometimes if I weren't the priest. Because I got to do that stuff. You know, if I leave, it doesn't get done in our tradition. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's just interesting to say that I think from both sides, we're seeing through this conversation, the impact that you all can have on our generation. Including my own experience is funny because I think my experience are a little different than mine because I had a pretty I had a Calvary was a little more like what St. Thomas is, and it really helped me to grow and really see God and church the way I do now. And those people still have an impact on my life. I can still walk into Calvary Episcopal Church and I'm Alex, and everyone goes, oh, Alex. And I have my grandpas and my grandmas of Calvary who've known me my whole life. And I have, people who were parents at the time who are still parents, but they're no longer parents of current youth, but they're still involved. And so the impact you can have on these programs and these ministries, and mostly these kids and these future generations, it's huge. It's really big. So don't ever feel like if you don't have children or youth, you can't help or be an impact. You really can. And you may not even see it in the immediate, but it will be felt in their lives, throughout their lives. So I think that's the hardest thing about ministry is it feels like we're gardeners and we're simply just putting water on dirt, and we can't see we don't ever get to see the full bloom flower until many, many years down the road. And you're like, hey, we helped to make that beautiful flower. But many flowers we are hoping to help bloom.
I think what we understand in the Episcopal Church is that a wise person plants a tree whose shade they might never get to enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up in a tradition that was very quote unquote good, meaning we spent money on children and youth programming. And my mentoring rector taught me that the way the Episcopal Church has chosen to do that is less through VBS and more through education. right? And that was a decision we made at this building 56 years ago. We started building the sanctuary and then we hit pause so we could build a school. And I understand that that school is a luxury. I do understand that. And it has a premium price attached to it because that's what it takes to operate. And what I understand is that it is the most visible ministry that we have at this place, and that the way we treat our children and faculty is absolutely formative. I absolutely understand and believe that. So sometimes it's easy to say, we're not doing children and youth ministry. You are. You are forming children in our tradition, in wisdom, in faith, and virtue, who don't even know you're doing it. And that's the best way, right? That's the good news, is that there's not any hook attached to it. This is what we're doing. And that's not where it has to end. We also get to do it for the kids and youth. And by the way, you all understand that this isn't just for people who go to our church. I'm really grateful that we form families who have no interest in our church. I may surprise you that we have a Viking Wiccan witch who attends our church. And I think it's super funny because I'm off the maps I grew up with. And this is community building for that family. And that's so right. It's so right. So other things you can do, take some time, take Alex to coffee or come by the office and just get to know him one-on-one, because he's not just here for people who have children. The family job is the village job, right?
Yes.
So you may say, I'm not doing this at all. Please take time to get to know Alex. Anyway, he's part of our ministerial staff. It's very likely and possible that if you get sick, I'll be visiting you, and so will Alex, independently or together, right? This is what we have is ministry. We don't have tiers of ministry here. Alex will not be serving you communion until he becomes a priest or consecrated. He will be serving you, right? But these are different ways of doing ministry together, and we're all in this together. So you'll be hearing Alex preach on Advent 1, and then a little more frequently after that. If you come to our school chapel, which is every day, and you're always invited, you'll hear Alex leading chapel on Wednesdays. This is stuff that we share. Many of you know that we have about 75 families involved in scouting, and the scouts require us at least once a year to do something called Duty to God, which is really where we talk about things like how we reverence God by reverencing the earth and one another. I do that, and Alex will be doing that. We have a lot going on already for families through scouting and through school, and some of the organizations like the Bay Area Assist Teams that rent our building. And so Alex is just going to help us double down on doing this for the community. And again, you can help just by being known and knowing him, right? Gathering resources together that we can deploy for the good of the community is what we're really aiming to do.
Yep. Yeah. So anytime you want to find me, I'm here in my office. I love a good cup of Joe. I'm also, if you're a little more introverted, and I'm an introvert as well, and you just want to do an email with all your ideas, that's great too. I'm more than happy to communicate via email. Excited to be here and to do this with you all.
Really grateful, Alex, for your time today. Thanks everybody for showing up. I just want to remind you that next week, we're going to be reading 2 chapters. That's about 30 pages of a book that I guarantee you will perplex you as a parent in a positive way, as a spouse and as a worker, called Nonviolent Communication. I just wish I'd read this book 30 years ago. So I look forward to reading it with you. If you're interested, you can get it on Amazon. The reading's very light. You can also get it on the Libby app for free. Harris County Public Library has this on the Libby app for free. You can hear the author read it and go off script. It talks about ways that we can be formative, not just for our kids, but with our parents, for one another, so that we can become more alive with the way we just speak to one another. It's so meaningful for me that I'm pursuing certification, because I need to know more. Like, I'm terrible at it, and I want to improve because my life will be enriched. So I hope, even if you don't join us, you'll give some thought to reading this book And you can read it and hate it. And I'd love to hear why you hate it. You can read it and say, I don't know what to do now. I'd love to hear that, because having read it, I don't always know what to do either. But that's what we'll be doing next week. So I look forward to doing this with you. And Alex, thanks for your time. And one last bit about Alex. He's come and hit the ground like running. You know, he inherited a whole bunch of stuff that he had to sort through. He inherited an office that we're still remodeling based on that water pipe breaking and freezing in February. So it's like been construction zone. And Alex has invented a children's chapel for us and is working to deepen our nursery and all like with the best possible attitude, which is just super joyful. So thanks, Alex. Really grateful to have you here at the Ministry of St. Thomas.
Love it. Thank you guys for having me. Thanks for letting me come on and talk. And I'm excited to get to talk to all of y'all again at some point. So
see you guys soon. Thank you.
bye, guys.